Hi everybody, in this video we're going to learn how to work with an array variable. An array is a data structure or data type that allows you to store multiple values in a single variable with the same name and same data type. Just imagine a box of Oreo cookies. Rather than having only one cookie in a package, we can have multiple cookies under the same brand, same flavor. So that's the concept of an array. It's just a collection of values with the same data type and same variable name. So on this quiz, we want to eventually find out the total of all the grades for an exam in a class and the class average. And we have two menu options. Option one is that number of students and all the grades are going to be fixed inside the program. Option two is those numbers are going to be provided by the user. So first, we're going to display the menu and then ask the user to enter a menu choice. So let's get started now with a switch. If it's case one, then first of all, we have to declare and create this array variable for all the student grades. There are multiple ways to do it, so let's get started. It looks just like how you declare a normal variable. All you have to do is add the square brackets right after the data type. We're going to call it grades. After you declare it, you can specify the size, meaning how many elements or how many values do you want to have in that box in that array. Let's say we're going to have 5 grades, or in other words, 5 students. So again, the first line you create the variable, the second line you specify the size of the array. Now, if you already know the values that you want to allocate to assign into those elements, you can do this. For example, these are the values. Or you can combine them if you want to. If you already know the values to be added into the array, for example, like this, or this way, or the shortest way that you can do is this third line. So just to recap again, this first line, double square brackets and then grades, that is just to create an array variable. The second line is to specify the size, meaning within this box, within this array, we want to have 5 elements or 5 values. Or if you know ahead of time that these are the values that you want to assign into those elements, then you can do the third line. Or you can do these following 3 lines. Either one of these lines is going to work just fine. The first version you create it, specify the size along with all the values. Or the second line is to create it. Do not have to specify the size because you already have the values anyway, and they will tell you that these are the 5 elements or 5 values into this array. So either one is gonna be fine. Same as the last one. You can skip all of that by just having all those values right after you create the array variable. So either one of these is going to be fine. Let's just say we're going to go with the last one. So by having that last line, basically we established that we have 5 students and these are the grades in the class. However, this following line is not going to work. Meaning you cannot just do grades equals and then all the values like this. This is an invalid because every time when you want to create and then initialize those values into the elements, you either have to have the new operator or you need to have this data type with the square brackets in front of the array. So this line is not going to work, just so you know that. Okay, so in this program, the bottom line is we want to find out the total of all the grades and then the average. So we need to declare these two variables, total, and just initialize it to 0, and also average. And that should be a comma. Okay, and to be able to work with all the elements in an array, even though in this case we only have 5 values or 5 students or 5 grades, in reality we could have a lot more than that. And to be able to work with each element effectively, typically we use a for loop, starting with the counter variable. In this case, we must start from 0 because in order to get to the first element or the first value in an array, we have to use an index. And an array is 0 index based, meaning the first item is going to be 0. The second one is going to be 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then the condition is I should be less than the number of the elements in the array. In this case, we know it's 5, and then I plus plus. Okay, and each time we want to basically accumulate the values within within the array by updating the total value with the value of each element inside the array, and we must identify or indicate which one we want to use by using this counter variable I, because each time I is going to start from 0 and then 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's the index for all of these elements. Again, that 100 values, the index of the first value is 0. The index of the second is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we want to display the total. And we want to find out the average, which is total divided by 5. Or you can actually use the length property of an array by first starting with the name of the array that you want to use, and then the length property. And the length property basically contains the number of the item or the elements within that array. So in this case, it's going to give you a number 5. And we'll just display the average. And don't forget to have a break for this case. So again, just to recap, there are multiple ways to create and initialize an array variable. You can do this first 2 lines without having all those values for the elements. Or after you create the array variable, you can initialize the values along with these values, for example, like this on the 3rd line. Or you can use either one of these 3 lines to create and then specify the size along with initializing all the values. Either one of these three lines is going to work exactly the same. And then typically we use a for loop to work with an array because that helps you repeat or getting into each element, starting from 0, because the index of 0 refers to the first value. And less than 5, or we can actually replace that 5 by using the array.length, just like this grades.length. Now, on case 2, that I want you to do it yourself, this time we are not going to fix the number of students and the grades inside the program. So you actually have to ask. You have to come up with your own questions to ask the user to say how many students are there in a class. And once you know that, you can use that number to specify the size of the array. And then you have to use a loop to ask the user to enter values into the grade array. And that's the end of this video.